Good morning. I don't know if you noticed, but I went for my beautification day to get ready for the wedding. So it's good to greet you. I travel tomorrow, and so it seems appropriate to do Paul's travel to Italy today. We're in Acts chapter 27, the first 11 verses. And so what's happened is that Paul has presented his case to the new governor Festus and to King Agrippa. Everyone agrees that there are really no charges that could be made against Paul that should incarcerate him or, what the Jews wanted, kill him. But Paul has requested an audience before Caesar, and so they have to comply. For one thing, I was thinking about that, and it's like you or me saying, well, no, I don't think I'm getting justice, so I need to have my audience before the president or something. So in this world, that's what happens. I'm going to read it and then we'll talk. But here is Paul and apparently Luke, because we get the, hey, how are you, Lori? We get the we pronouns again. So I'm beginning chapter 27, verse 1. Hey, Barbie. As soon as arrangements were completed for our sailing to Italy, Paul and a few other prisoners were placed under the supervision of a centurion named Julius, a member of an elite guard. We boarded the ship at Adramyttium that was bound for Ephesus and ports west. A man named Archelaus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, went with us. The next day we put in at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul most decently and let him get off the ship and enjoy the hospitality of friends there. Out to sea again, we sailed north under the protection of the northeast shore of Cyprus because the winds out of the west were against us, and then along the coast westward to the port of Myra. There the centurion found an Egyptian ship headed for Italy and transferred us on board. We ran into bad weather and found it impossible to stay on course. After much difficulty, we finally made it to the southern coast of the island of Crete and docked at Good Harbor. Appropriate name. By this time, we had lost a lot of time. We had passed the autumn equinox, so it would be stormy weather from now through the winter. Too dangerous for sailing, Paul warned. I see only disaster ahead for cargo and ship, to say nothing of our lives, if we put out to sea now. But it was not the best harbor for staying the winter. Phoenix, a few miles further on, was more suitable. The centurion set Paul's warning aside and let the ship's captain and the ship owner talk him into trying for the next harbor. So that's up to verse 11. And I want to unpack some of this because, again, it's not me knowing anything. It's reading William Barclay. So William Barclay points out that the Aristobulus, whose name I massacred, the Macedonian from Thessalonica, apparently probably put himself on as a servant or slave to Paul because he wanted so much to go with him and to help him. Hey, Linda. Help him through this journey. And because we're doing we pronouns and our pronouns, we know that Luke also is traveling with him. And so, again, Paul is this incredibly powerful, charismatic leader, and there are those who want to go with him and help him on this journey. And also, Julius, the centurion who is in charge of the prisoners and this group that's going to Italy, he also is a fan of Paul. He is very respectful of Paul and lets him go off ship when they get to Ephesus and visit with some friends. No, it's Sidon. But anyway, so it's clear that everyone around Paul respects him very much, wants to make Paul's journey good, and wants to join him on this journey. And those who are in charge of him from a military aspect have a great respect for him. It's hard to imagine, again, somebody saying to a prisoner, yeah, you go ahead, visit with some friends, and come on back. We'll continue the journey. But I guess the biggest thing I want to say that I really didn't understand until I was reading Barclay earlier is how difficult it was to sail. So we're talking first century sailing. And so you don't have a compass, you don't have a sextus, you don't have charts really to any great degree, except for that which skirts around the islands that are in that Mediterranean area. Also, you are really dumb. You cannot travel at all safely after the autumn equinox. So it would be like our autumn equinox is usually Halloween, that time in which, again, things change from fall into winter. And it's very dangerous sailing. So what's happened is apparently they've gotten on the journey kind of late in the year anyway. And now they've mucked around just getting into Good Harbor. And Paul, what Barclay says, William Barclay says, is that probably Paul is like the most experienced traveler among them. You've got the captain and the crew, but they have gone their particular route all of their life. Paul has traveled all over this area on different ships and different places. And so, and at different times of year. And so he knows what it is to travel during this fall, winter time of the year. And it's incredibly dangerous. And so he says, this is not a good time to travel. Let's just kind of hang out here at Good Harbor and, pick up in the spring and do that. So it seems as though this was pretty commonplace. If you were trying to travel late in the year, you would find a good harbor and you would hang out there until the winter passed and you were able to go again. Think of our culture. Think of how quickly we want things to happen. I remember when I was on my mission trip in Haiti, and it's much more like a couple 100 years ago in Haiti than it is today. And so, floods would come and you'd say, well, we're scheduled to go today. Aren't we going? They're going, not so much. We'll wait for the waters to recede and then maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, but we'll see how it goes. And for us who insist on, being able to go when we want to go, it's a tough concept to get. But in Paul's time and in Paul's place, that was it, on steroids, that not only could you not travel perhaps during this day, but during this season. And William Barclay kind of alludes that Good Harbor is not a very big town, a small town. So you have an Egyptian ship, you have its captain and its crew for that ship. Then you have the prisoners and whoever's going along with the prisoners, because Paul has at least a few people going along with him, as well as the Roman guards who were there to protect the prisoners to get them to Rome. So that's a pretty big crew, and apparently, particularly the ship's captain wants a larger harbor, a larger town to let his crew loose in. So think of sailors. Think of what they might have wanted in a town, and apparently Good Harbor isn't the place to be. And so the ship's captain convinces the centurion to go ahead, to put Paul's warnings aside and to go ahead and move on to the next harbor. So this is scripture I have never read in church. And you think, well, where's the blessing in it? Or where is God in the midst of this? And I think God is always in the midst of every day. And so part of what I love about this text is that there's a man who's willing to place himself as servant, probably a free man, but place himself as servant to Paul so he can travel with him and care for him and just be with him throughout the journey, even though the journey is going to be very difficult. I appreciate that concept. Also that Paul is so well respected by Julius, the head centurion, that he's allowed to go offshore. So Paul's life in God was one that garnered respect and honor from everyone he met. It wasn't just other Christians, and they saw the integrity of his life and the goodness of his life. And probably Julius, who had, again, been in Caesarea, had probably heard Paul speak as well. And so those who knew him and respected him honored him, although not far enough to take his his warning about the weather seriously. And also just how dangerous it was to travel. Paul wants to go to Rome. Paul's been wanting to go to Rome for years, even though it's a very treacherous journey. So my guess is that everyone who is on this journey knows someone who has gone to Rome, tried to get to Italy, and has died at sea. The sea was a terrible, horrible, scary place. Think of the book of Jonah. You know, you get out to sea and not all of them are lucky enough to be swallowed by a huge fish and then spat out on sea. So all of them knew the danger of the waters and that they were a scary place. But here's this group, and it's going to Italy so that Paul can come before Caesar and make his case. Nothing simple. The journey that was supposed to be short becomes long. The time to travel becomes not convenient. And all of those things that we think ought to fall into place, because here's God's person traveling to Rome, do not. And they don't even listen to him. So spoiler alert, next week, if I make it back for next week, I'm not quite sure. I'm getting back from the wedding and all, but the next time we get together, I'll be talking about the journey that they insisted on making during bad weather, which does not go well, just to let you know. And Paul, in the midst of all of it, is God's person. So think today, if you're in the midst of a rough journey, if the seas are against you, God is there with you, leading you, holding you, moving forward. And we have scripture that says that again and again. And even though we don't read this stuff in church because, you know, Paul is just going to Italy, know that it's there in the scripture, and it's there to encourage us and strengthen us in our journey, even when it seems perilous. There you go. That's me today. Traveling mercies for me. I go up to Appalachian tomorrow and party all weekend, celebrating Nathan's wedding. Blessing and peace to you all. Thanks for watching. Take care. Love ya.